Right, in today's lecture, I will take you on brief writing. Have you been finding it so difficult to draft a compelling brief? Maybe for your moot court competition or for real life facts? If that is the case, then this video is for you. But I would need you to do one thing: like this video and subscribe to it. Right? Then let's dive into it. What then is a brief? A brief is simply your argument, the summary of your argument, right? So, there is this saying that your brief is as good as your argument. It is only when you are able to draft a compelling brief that you'll be able to argue based on that. You understand? So, the beauty of your argument lies in your brief, right? So, before writing a brief, there are several things, preliminary things that need to be taken into consideration, right? First of all, when you are being presented with a fact of a case, right, you are meant to read that fact carefully and understand every bit of it. When you've read the facts, the next thing to do is to distill your issues. What are the issues contained in this fact that I'm meant to tackle? Although sometimes if they present you with a fact of a case, especially in moot court competition or mock society, right, they used to provide the fact with the issues you are meant to tackle, right? But then in a case whereby there is no issue distilled, right, you are meant to point out the issues yourself. And remember, it must not be one issue. And for you to start with your issue, you always start with whether or not Ngozi is liable for negligence. Let's assume that you've distilled your issue. The next question you ask yourself is, which court has the jurisdiction to ascertain this matter? If it concerns negligence, which court have the jurisdiction to ascertain this matter, right? If it is between the state and the federation, which court will ascertain the matter? This is the question you need to ask yourself. Because imagine the circumstance whereby you are taking up election matters to the Supreme Court, right? They will end up striking the matter due to the fact that they lack jurisdiction to ascertain that matter at first instance, right? So you need to ask yourself, which courts will be suitable for me to bring up this case to them? Which courts have the jurisdiction to ascertain this matter, right? So when you've determined the court that has the jurisdiction, you need to determine whether or not the parties have the local standing. Your client now, whether he or she has the local standing to bring up this matter, right? You know, some people actually lack the local standing. Does this matter affect my client directly or indirectly? That is how you'll be able to determine whether he's a necessary party or a proper party, right? So you determine all these before starting your brief, right? When you start your brief is divided into several stages, right? You have the introductory stage, you have the stage where you write your statement of facts, you have the stage where you distill your issue, the stage where you argue, that is your argument, the conclusion and list of authorities, right? In your introduction, basically, you are meant to mention the court. Let's assume that the High Court of Anambra State has the jurisdiction to attend this matter. So when you are writing the introduction of your brief, the first thing you need to capture is the court. Let's say in the High Court of Anambra State, in the Awka Judicial Division, holding at Awka, right? You write your suit number, then the parties to the suit. If it is a civil matter, you need to mention the plaintiff and the defendant, right? So between Chukwuebuka, the plaintiff, and Ngozi, the defendant, right? So the next thing you are meant to do is to write your brief statement of facts. In this stage of brief writing, you are not meant to bring in emotions into the facts. You are meant to provide the fact as it is. You are not meant to paint it or to bring in your arguments at this stage, right? You are just meant to simplify the fact for better understanding that on 28th of November Ngozi broke into my room and that this happened, right? So you're going to break it in a more understandable way to present it as your statement of facts, right? So after writing your statement of fact, the next thing is to write your issue, whether or not Ngozi is liable for murder. Sorry, let's go with a civil case rather. Whether or not Ngozi is liable for negligence, right? Having distilled the issue for determination, right? The next thing is your argument. And at this stage is where you are meant to show that yes, you are a law student, or that yes, you are a lawyer, right? And you actually know where to find your law, right? At this stage, you are meant to bring in the laws. Let's take negligence for instance. We will first of all define negligence according to the Black's Law Dictionary. We establish negligence as was established in the case of Donoghue versus Stevenson, duty of care, right? So you talk about elements of negligence, talk about the sections of the laws, the statute that established it, right? Cite cases and authorities. Like you need to argue your point here and tie them to the facts. As you are establishing negligence, you are tying them to the fact of the case and make sure that it is aligning with the fact of the case, right? So it is at this point that you will be able to sway the judge to believe with you that what you are saying, you actually know what you are saying, and it is being provided by not you but the law, right? So argue your points and tie it to the fact of the case, right? So after this, you are going to lay down your reliefs, the relief you want the court to do for you, the things you want the court to do for you. 5 million naira for the damages cost, 15 million naira for this, right? Anything you want the court to do for you, after your argument, you put them as the relief sought. And after this relief sought, the next thing is your conclusion. You are meant to just conclude everything and summarize everything and plead the court to grant judgment in favor of your clients, right? So after this, the next thing you will do now is to list table of authorities and statutes as well as your table of cases. So if you got one or two from this lecture, like this video and subscribe to it. Thank you and see you in my next lecture.